Okay, well, welcome to the App Inventor Q&A webinar with Pet and Jackie. Hi students, mentors, and coaches. I see that you're from all over the place, that you stayed up late at night or gotten up very early in the morning to join us, which is very exciting for us. I wanted to welcome you all to the webinar today with Pet and Jackie, who are both students at Wellesley College, and they're our resident Technovation App Inventor Fellows. And so you know who I am. Oops. My name is Amy Gardner, and I'm the Technovation Director of Curriculum. And right now, you guys should be really racing towards the end, getting ready to submit your apps for the challenge. And, you also, since the deadline isn't until the 21st of April, have a few more weeks to actually make some more updates to your apps. And this is the reason why I've asked Jackie and Pet to come with us today and to just give you guys some answers to your questions in person, because there seems to be a lot of questions trickling in, and I wanted to make sure you had a chance to interact with each other. So as you guys may know, teams are expected to submit their source code and a 2-minute demo video along with the other deliverables like the pitch video and the business plan as part of all of the entire package of Technovation deliverables on the 21st. And now we have the opportunity to chat in person, and you guys have come so far. You work so hard. We want to keep you motivated and happy to be participating. And let's just enjoy this time together. There's also going to be another App Inventor Q&A on the 18th of April, which I'll mention again at the end. So if you still have more questions, feel free to come back to that. But I also wanted to point to some resources I was mentioning before we started. And these are in the materials section of your pane. And you can find two resources that Jackie and Pet made called TinyDB 101 and TinyDB 102, which is all about databases. And you can download them here. For those of you who are tuning in after the fact, you can go to the technovationchallenge.org/curriculum website. And if you scroll down to Ask an Expert webinar series, you can find the recording and any materials afterwards there. Also, during the webinar, you can use the chat room feature, which I'll open up here. And you can use that to write questions, and I will moderate this. And if I hear a question or read one actually that is pertinent to what we're talking about at the moment, I'll chime in and ask them to respond. And if it's something I think that can wait a tiny bit, I'll hold that question and ask it at the appropriate moment. And if we can't get to all your questions, I will be taking note of them, so don't worry. And if that happens, definitely type your email into the chat room and I'll get to that. And for those of you who are just watching the recording, unfortunately, you won't be able to get your questions answered live, obviously, but you can email them to either me, and my email address is Amy, as my first name, at technovationchallenge.org. And I'll also type it into the chat room. And before we get into that, though, before we get into the actual Q&A, I just wanted to let you guys get a chance to meet Jackie and Pet a little bit and get to know a little bit more about them. These guys are really interesting, really cool cats. And I will just provide a really short introduction, and then I'll let them tell a little bit more about themselves. So Jackie, who you see on the right in the picture, is a sophomore at Wellesley College, majoring in computer science, and she's worked as a research assistant and developer at Wellesley to improve App Inventor's user interface, aiming to make navigating through the workspace more intuitive and streamlined. Currently, she's a tutor and TA for Wellesley's Intro to CS course and hopes to empower more women in the next few months through using App Inventor as a tool to succeed in and improve society. So, Jackie, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and some of the things about App Inventor that you really like.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess I'll start with what I like about App Inventor. So I think it's just how like approachable it is for everyone, like people who haven't even had any coding experience before. It's like it's a resource and a platform that's just like really easy for people to pick up in general, and it's just super friendly in terms of like the user interface. And I just love like dragging blocks around. It's like a lot of fun for me as well. And more about me, I'm on the ultimate frisbee team. I have an older brother And I used to have 2 pet chickens. So
Cool.
that's me. I'm Jackie. Thank you everyone for being here.
And now on to Pet, who's also a student at Wellesley. She's there on the left. She's currently a sophomore there, majoring in both computer science and women and gender studies. So she's like a double threat. And Wellesley's mobile app making course, taught entirely through MIT App Inventor, was her first ever CS course. Now she's hooked on creative problem solving and can never go back, in her own words. In the future, she hopes to find a career that combines both her love of coding and creating with social justice and education. She hopes she'll be able to aid in the creation of all your amazing projects. So, same for you. But tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you really dig about App Inventor.
Yeah, so like it was mentioned, the App Inventor course I love was my first ever CS course, and I thought it was awesome that I could see what I was doing live. So I really like the fact that I could live develop and I could see like the button pop up and I could touch it, things like that. And now as I'm taking more CS courses, like right now I'm taking a theory of programming languages course, and we're talking about App Inventor, and we're like, App Inventor is a real language and it's so powerful and it's awesome. And I just love that, you know, it was my first language and it's still the language I'm really passionate about, because it is really easy to use and it's really intuitive and it makes CS fun, and I think that's really important. I also, I guess more about me, I like to dye my hair really often. So right now it's kind of like a boring, you know, little blonde, but it's been purple and blue and pink and all of that. And my favorite soda is Dr. Pepper.
You. Nice. So before we get to the Q&A, I wanted to just bring us all back to a time where we were thinking about the judging rubric at the beginning when we were all starting to learn about Technovation, and now we're coming back to the judging rubric because you guys need to think about again, you know, what our judges are going to be looking at in terms of the technology and the source code that you're giving them. And who are these judges anyway? So our judges are volunteers who are usually in the tech field or in the business field, and they volunteer with us to look through all the applications that we get. And there's about 1,000 or so teams that are poised to begin submitting their deliverables. So we have a lot of people who are spending time looking at the stuff that you're delivering, which is great. And I just wanted to mention, I cut and paste the technical aspect of this rubric to let you see what exactly they're looking for, because you can get a total of 20 points here. And this is actually like the bulkiest part of the rubric. So it's pretty important. And you'll see that some of the main questions here are, is the prototype that was submitted fully functional? If you have published your app to either the Google app, Play Store or the Apple App Store or the Amazon one, it's great if they can actually download your app and test it. So you're going to want to make sure that everything is functional, that there aren't any bugs there. Is it easy to use? That's what the user interface is all about. And then, does the prototype go beyond static information? Does it connect to apps that are outside of yours? Does it save information to an external server to coordinate multiple users? So think about all these things when you're creating your demo video, because you're going to want to show how this app is actually navigated by somebody. So that's what that video is all about. And then lastly, ask yourselves, does the prototype actually match the app description? Because you might have written the app description a while ago, and you may have introduced new features. So you're going to want to make sure that what's written in the description actually mirrors what is going on in your app. Because I've seen it happen before where people didn't cross-reference these two things, and that can really trip a judge up, and you don't want to be tripping them up. So anyways, if you guys have questions about the judging rubric and stuff, feel free to email me after this webinar, because this is a really important facet of your submission. Anyways, enough about me. I'm thinking about how we should go about responding to the questions. Do you guys, Jackie and Pet, want to look at the questions that were asked in advance and see who?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and let me now just transfer ownership of this presentation to you. So hold on just a second, and I will make you guys the presenters. All right.
Cool.
That
Oh, cool. Okay.
Can
Okay, so I think my screen is being shown. Okay, yeah.
Cool.
So I guess we can start with the first question then. Okay. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly.
Let's unmute okay?
Oh yeah, like can we?
So we can do some conversation.
Yeah, let me unmute her. Hold on a sec.
Conversationing.
Yeah, this is interesting. Okay, so
where did the chat go? Oh, we found it.
Okay, she now has the
Hello.
with you.
Hi.
Okay, so this was my question.
Cool.
My name is Akirke.
Okay, cool.
So
nice to meet
you almost said it right.
Okay. We'll work on it.
Okay. So I look at your tutorial. I've seen it before, but the thing is, it doesn't use the images. And my question was, I wanted to post some pictures, right? So I need some sort of free server, PHP server, where I can post the picture and keep its URL in my Fusion table. So my question was like, what services are available and which one you would recommend? And then in general, is it the right logic that I'm using?
Yeah, I think your approach to it is like completely correct. I think in the tutorial, they recommended using Google Drive, which is like one good platform. You can just like upload your image and you like click share and you get a link that you can put into your Fusion table. And I think there are also there are a lot of other platforms where you can share images too. I think Imgur.
But if you're looking for a web database that allows you to store, basically if you're just trying to store links, then any kind of free web database should work. Because you're just basically storing text that just happens to be a link, and of course, once you do decide to show the images, you'll probably have to use something along the lines of like a web viewer, and then use those links to then go to the picture, right? So I believe that Google has one. Google allows you to make a free web database, which is, when I took the course, that's also what we use. I think if you access their developer options, you can use something similar to it's basically something that looks just like the default web database when you look at TinyWebDB in App Inventor. If you look at the component TinyWebDB and you go to the properties, there's this link there that links to the database that is online. And of course, the databases online usually have some sort of website where you can access information in an easy way. And so, yeah, I hope that helps. There are some free web databases online, and as long as they can store text, which I believe any web database should be able to do that, you can use it for your app, as long as you have a way to get the information.
What I'm not sure about is like the permissions. Will it let me post the picture?
Well, so I guess. Okay. Oh, so when you suggested Imgur, are you talking about having her upload her picture so that she could have the links to store?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I see. Yeah.
I think you should have permission on those platforms, like especially with Google Drive. I upload images there all the time, and as long as you set like your sharing settings on each of the images to public, then anyone who's using your app should be able to view the images like from your Google Drive. And I think like everyone is allotted like, is it 5 gig or 5?
I think something like 5 gigabytes. Definitely enough to store quite a bit of photos. So Google Drive, Imgur. A lot of people use Flickr. Also,
I'll write this.
Jackie will write this down in the chat thing. And also TinyPic, things like that. Things that allow you to create an account and create a URL photo. And as long as you store that URL in a database and use something like a web viewer to show the picture from the link on the internet, you should be fine.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. And then you also had a question about list viewing. So would you like me to? So this is your second question about using pictures in list views. Would you like me to go and talk a little bit more about the answer that we put down in the Google Doc?
Okay, let me see.
Hello?
We can just go over it. And then I'll write down some of our, my laptop's flying. I'll write down some of our responses in Google Docs too, so it's like easier to go back to instead of watching the webinar again.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. I can also help with that. Oh, so, sorry. I'll do that. So, okay, so the second answer, so Kirky's second question was, can we create a dynamic list view that connects to web databases and show the image plus its text, something like an Instagram newsfeed? And I think there was another question that was asked that also had the idea of using an interface that kind of looks like Instagram. So we can talk about that. So the thing is that you cannot set the elements of a list viewer or a list picker as images. If you look at the documentation for a list viewer or a list picker, the elements can only be text. So there's that. So if you did want to have something that looked like a list and behaved like a list that's like, text and a picture, and then you can scroll through, there are ways to do it on App Inventor that makes it look like you're having a scrollable list, but you really don't. And that's like something that I think you kind of have to learn to do with App Inventor. App Inventor is super powerful, but there's just some things that it can't do. And when you get to that point, you kind of have to like find a hack to be able to make something similar. So one suggestion was to put in a bunch of canvas components on your screen. And canvas components can have pictures, they can have text, they can have anything. And you can put many of them. And so say if you put 3 of them on your screen, you put in some text, put in images, and you want to make it look like you're scrolling, what you can do is you can put a button at the bottom of the screen such that when the user clicks it, it kind of like refreshes, different images load, different text loads, and it makes it look like you scrolled, but really all the image components and all the text box components on your screen. So you can try that.
Nice. Someone just asked, are we going to send out the answers after the call? And I'm just saying that since Jackie's typing as you're talking, could just consult the Google Doc, which I'll be sharing with everybody after again. Okay.
So I imagine there's a refresh button, right? And then I press, and then it updates the 3 screens, right? The 3 canvases.
Yes,
okay,
correct.
But if I'm scrolling the screen, I mean, if the canvases are longer than the size of the screen, then I lose that button, right? It will be at the bottom. Do you know what I mean?
So you're worried that if the canvases are too big that you can't click the button on the bottom of the screen? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I think that, if I'm not wrong, I think that there is, in the properties section of the screen component, there's a scrollable checkbox that lets your screen become scrollable. So that if for some reason any picture is so big that it makes your screen, like it makes it so that it is bigger than the dimension of your screen should be scrollable then. But the only yeah, but the thing is like the thing with what Instagram does and what you want to do in our app is that I don't think that we have the capability of basically making it so that every time you scroll and you hit the bottom, it creates new things. And as far as I know, in App Inventor, you can't generate, like, you can't just make new things pop up. They have to exist. And you can fix their visibility, like either they're not visible now and they're visible later, but you can't just make new things show up without having coded it beforehand, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Jackie is furiously typing.
Okay. And then should we address the Fusion table question as well? Cool. So, okay. So in your Fusion table question, you want to join 2 rows, but they have different table IDs, correct? Is that the issue that you're having?
Yes. Right now I'm struggling with having IDs, but as soon as I get that, I will have to join these two tables.
Okay, so joining tables. Okay, so you can, so in the Fusion table control, there are blocks that say get row, correct? And you
Yes.
put in, and you put in the ID, and you put in some comma separated things that are the names of your columns. And so the thing is, you can just get the rows with different IDs. So you don't have to have necessarily the same ID. What you can do is once you get the rows back, the rows are in CSVs, which stand for comma separated values. And there's a block in the list blocks for App Inventor, which are light blue, that says two lists from CSV. And what that does is it takes a bunch of things that are separated by commas and makes it into a list. And the cool part about that is with lists, you can do things like join them, you can sort them, you can make them into different lists. Good way for you to take two different rows from the same or different IDs and combine them. Do you want me to go more into how to do that with lists?
Like the SQL, you mean?
Yeah,
let's go.
Sure. So what the SQL? So SQL or SQL is like a language that is used a lot for data, and that is its syntax. I think you can look it up online. But really, what you would be using that for is if you wanted to only take in certain stuff from the columns. Like for instance, if you only wanted things that were not empty or things that started with A, things like that. But in terms of actually combining all your tables together or your rows together, once you take your comma separated value, so once you get the row from the Fusion table, you can make that into a list. And the way that you combine lists in App Inventor is you do a for loop, which for for loop, what you're basically going to be doing is you have these two lists, say like row 1 and row 2, and you have these two lists and probably have to have saved in a global variable. You can use a loop that says, oh, every time I go through the number 1, I get the first element, the first element from list 1, the first element from list 2, and I add them into this new list that I'm forming, and you're adding them each time. So you basically, so the key idea here is that you're taking information from a Fusion table, turning into a list in App Inventor, and then using what you already know with lists to make them into one. And that's how you would combine rows in a Fusion table.
It's hard to understand. I'm a visual person and I'm listening to you, but I can't see it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what we can do is we have your email, so we can send screenshots of what we're talking about to help you with that.
Do you have my email? Okay.
Yes, I believe we do. Yeah.
just to double check it's this.
Sure. Perfect. Yeah, we will send you screenshots that go along with the information that we're talking about in the Google Doc.
Yeah.
I totally get you. I'm also a visual learner. If I felt a little bit more comfortable, I think I would show you the blocks, but I think it takes some time to put them together. So we'll just send you screenshots instead.
Okay, that will be great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
No problem.
Oh, yeah, we can add screenshots to the Google Docs.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We will do that, and we'll email Kirky. Oh, I'll get better.
Yes, it's correct. Yeah.
I'll also email you individually as well, so you can see that.
Cool. All right, shall we move on to the Tech Girls team question?
Yeah. Also, I just typed this in the chat, but if you're waiting for us to answer your question, it would be super helpful if you could go in the Google Doc and read what we've written there so far. So then when we actually get to your question, you can like ask us follow-up questions or like maybe clarify things if we didn't really answer your question, because sometimes we might have interpreted the question like a different way than what you're thinking. So that would be like super helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and we can also, if you didn't chance to type your question in the Google Doc beforehand, you can also type it in the chat and we'll like address those as well at some point. Yeah, thanks.
So I'm wondering if someone from the Tech Girls team can identify herself so I can unmute you. It's possible that someone might not be here from that team. In which case, we should probably move to the little text Javaria.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Anyone?
No one.
Not
Oh, okay. Tech Girls.
okay.
Catherine from Tech Girls is here.
All right,
Awesome.
Catherine. I'm gonna unmute you now. Here's your moment. Okay, you should have.
Hello.
Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Did you get a chance to look at the AI merger tool and like the documentation on it?
Not yet.
Okay, so that might be helpful. I actually have never used the AI merger tool before. If there's anything in the documentation that isn't clear, or if there's anything that we can like help test out for you, just let us know and we'll do our best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a good learning experience for us as well.
Yeah, definitely. We're all learning together.
So definitely check out the documentation. And if you want to do that now, it's totally fine. And then you can get back to us with questions and we'll help you with that.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry if the answer is short, but hopefully the resources will help you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Should we go to the next question? And then, Catherine, you can just like type in the chat if you have like follow-up questions.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Okay, is anyone from Little Tex Javaria? That's such a cool name.
That is a cool name. I really like that name.
Anyone? Oh. In the chat room, Lillian is asking if I can share the Google Doc in the app. Can you?
Oh, like the link?
Oh yeah, I can share the link. Oops. Let me get that for you.
I just put it in the chat. So.
Jackie beat me to it.
Speedy. Okay, okay, Little Tex Javaria, if you're here, we can come back to you, but I think for now we'll go on to the next team. I'm gonna get my charger.
No problem. So, sorry. So, yes, anybody from the Compote team? Compote.
You hear that? I just.
Okay. Oh, it's
all right. Okay, again.
We'll go back.
Superstar.
Okay.
Okay, you should be unmuted.
Yeah, so it's our team. I know their questions too. So.
Okay.
Yeah. We're using static map and our image. Yeah. What we see like in a minute or so. And I also changed the interval to, as you said, 1,000 milliseconds, but it's still like, you have to wait and it's really annoying.
That's interesting. Okay, so we had this problem too when we were using Google static maps, and most of the problems were fixed when you change the time interval. You can try an even smaller time interval. You can try 500 milliseconds, so that should be typically it should be every half second. The thing is that there are also other things that may be affecting the sensitivity of your GPS. Basically, so for instance, if you're in a space that just has bad signal, like bad GPS signal, or if you're perhaps in a space that doesn't have Wi-Fi, so that's the thing that is also important to note, is that when you're using App Inventor connected to your computer via Wi-Fi, all the things that are happening are dependent on how good your Wi-Fi is. If you want test your app on like for instance, if I want to take my location app, right, that has a map, and I wanted to go around my college, I would have to download it onto my phone and into a device that has some sort of data plan in it, so that I can have GPS location. So that's also important. And and how good your connection is, and the space that you're in also affects it, because it's possible that you're not moving enough that that the GPS sensor knows that you're moved, if that makes sense. I feel like it depends. Yeah. So try that. So try downloading the app to whatever device you have that has data. So maybe a cell phone if you have access to that Android cell phone. Try changing the time interval into something even smaller than 1,000. Though technically, I think 1,000 should be okay. But don't put 0. It gets really weird if it's 0. It gets confused. Yeah, and I would try suggesting doing that, and hopefully it'll make your app go faster. But I totally understand. When I did it once, it was really frustrating as well. So I hope it works out for you.
Do you think like that we're using static map is a problem? If we had used the full Google Maps API, it would have been faster.
I can't say, because I actually haven't had the chance to use the full Google Maps API. The thing about the full Google Maps API is that it does cost money. There are certain APIs in Google that they'll only give to you if you pay them money, and that's something that I didn't get to try for those reasons. But that being said, I don't think that the time between the data updating would be super dependent on which API you're using. Yeah, I think it has to do more with your own connection. Though I will say that one limitation of static maps is that, so every time you know how the time interval, if it's 1,000, it means that it's checking every second, correct? That means that every second it's kind of sending out information to the Google Static Maps API, and it's bringing information back. Technically, you have a limit of how many times you can do that in a day, but I've never reached that limit. I think it's like 10 or 20,000 times a day. So I think you should be fine. But that's the only thing about static maps that's also important to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next question, I think I already a little bit touched on that. For example, in Instagram, right, they have this home, add, and then like my profile button fixed. What I mean is, like, when you scroll, it never goes down, it never goes down. And then on the button also. And in our app, we have very similar buttons in the bottom and on the top. I scroll through our list viewer, they disappear. So the whole point of having those points, having those buttons also doesn't make sense, because the list viewer sort of is longer than the screen, and our screen is also scrollable, but we lose those buttons. We sort of don't know how to make them freeze, or I don't know how to fix the list viewer.
I think I know what you're talking about. I believe there should be a way to do it so that your list viewer is a certain size.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take over the dimensions of your entire screen. I'm gonna do some tests.
Yeah. Do you want it?
Yeah.
Right here.
Let's do some tests together.
Okay. So that's
Nice
project. Test 2. Okay.
Okay.
Really?
Okay. Sorry, we're kind of all smushed on one computer. I'm all in Jackie's face. Nope, not list picker. Let's do list view. Okay, good. So you have this list view. I wonder, no, you can't. See, okay, so it looks like a list view. Oh, yeah, you can. So if you do the width to automatic, that's good. You can do this to fill parent. This will bring it to fill up the entire thing. I think that I've done such a thing where I could place a button here, and the button always stays that way. If I'm not wrong, like you can do a horizontal layout. Like say, like, for instance, button 1 could be a back button, right? Or button 2 could be a go button, things like that. Does your app have something similar to this? Are the dimensions? What are the height and width dimensions of your list viewer?
I think it is field parent or it's screen.width, screen.height.
Huh. Maybe. I've never tried this out. I feel like this would work if you did screen. So say, for instance, you want to deal with the height, right? Because that's the problem. If the height's too long, then the buttons get away. What if you did screen.height minus like 30 pixels?
The height of the button, you mean?
Right, exactly. However big your button is. And that should, I think, solve the problem so that your screen is never bigger. Your list viewer is never the size of the screen. It's always a little bit less. So try that. Yeah.
Okay. And then when I scroll, I sort of refresh, and it's just filled in within the height of the required height, right?
Can you say that again, please?
Yeah, I mean, so when I refresh my news, only news, images, and text got refreshed, and then the freezed button doesn't disappear, right?
It shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I hope it helps.
I hope it helps as well. If you have any issues later, just let us know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's it, right? We didn't ask anything.
Okay. I'm glad we were able to help. That's good. Makes me feel good.
Yay, pet. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to Army Public School, Noida. Is anyone from there here?
From that team?
Lillian says, if we use a list picker or viewer, do we need to use both?
No, you don't need to use both. So the difference between the list picker and list viewer is the list viewer is always this. The list picker, the list when you touch the button. Right.
Yeah. So have you ever seen anything where you're like trying to select, like there are like a bunch of options, and then maybe can we do a demo for this? Do
you want to use the emulator?
Yeah, I have the emulator. So fun. What is this right now? The list viewer. Okay, so you can put a list picker in here too.
That's the latest.
Just kidding. I did that by accident. My list picker. Thanks, pet. Okay, and then we should put stuff in there. Elements from strings.
Pet is cooler than Jackie.
What?
Okay. Jackie, you're cool.
Is this how I do it, right?
You can just put it in. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Pet and Jackie are.
I think the quotation marks might even be in it, but that's fine.
Oh, maybe better mixed up with like
other
things you need. Quotes around them. Pet and Jackie are cool. Okay. And then emulator. Here we go. Actually, this might take a while. Okay, so while this is going, we'll talk good questions.
Hear from
also, the other difference I think between a list picker and a list viewer is that setting the elements is different. Setting the elements of the list things are different. I think in one of them you can set the elements. There's like a block where you can set the element, and in the other one you have to set it when the screen initializes. Yeah. So just watch out for that as well.
Okay, I just unmuted Mina because she's the one from the Army school.
Hi, Mina.
Hi. Good morning, all. Good morning. Okay, ma'am. I have the first question is about how do I rename the screen? No, the screen object.
Oh, so just the screen.
The screen, yeah, the screen object. Suppose I have entered the first screen. I have created a screen with the screen name is screen 1. So how do I rename it?
Oh, screen one actually can't be renamed. So I looked this up a little bit beforehand, and screen one is like a special a special name for the object, and if it's not named screen one, then it won't, like the rest of the app like won't recognize that that's your first screen that you want to show up. It's yeah, that's another one of the limitations of App Inventor.
But that being said, you can change the name of the screen for the users.
Right, right. So if that's what you're
Okay, using the title property, how it can be changed for the user? Using the title property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me.
Yeah, using the title property, right? So on your end, as a coder, it will still say screen one, but if you change the title in the title property to like first cool screen, that's going to be the screen name that your user will see.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, my next question is about the database. Okay. Okay, my second question is about the database. See, I'm using a login, sorry, the sign up page. So I'm storing the values in the TinyDB. But whenever I'm using the sign in option, that values are not persistent. Even in the next session, they will not be persistent. So I have written the code here also. I just copy paste the screenshots.
Oh, I see. I see.
Okay, I'll take a look at
I'm trying to make it. I'm gonna zoom in so everyone can see. Okay, I hope everyone can see this. Maybe.
So, in your
I'm using a single TinyDB.
TinyDB3, open Wait, so is your button one the button that the people press after they put in all of their information?
Yeah, right.
And then, so is this the first time they are putting in their information?
Yeah, that is for the sign up page.
So after,
So sign up.
So this is for the sign up, but then later on, when the person comes and they go to a different page where they log in, it doesn't work.
No, it's not working there.
Can I see those blocks, the blocks that you use when you try to have someone re-log in after already signing up?
Which blocks, ma'am, you're talking about?
So these are the blocks that code what happens when someone signs up for the first time. But what about the blocks? What about the blocks of what happens when a person has already signed up and is trying to log back in?
Okay, then the user has to sign in first. So there is a sign up page. Wait, I'll just.
Mina.
I'm just trying to go back.
Oh, there.
Emulator is not working.
Nothing new.
Maybe we could have you share your screen so we can see the blocks.
Yeah, that might be useful.
Yeah.
So the thing that I'm thinking is, you can also give your opinion, Jackie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this is what happens when someone signs up for the first time. So they put in their name, their password, and then what can happen is, so right now also, okay, so two possible things. One thing is that, well, if possible, I do want to see the block. So what happens when someone tries to log back in? Because I basically just want to see, thank you. Get that username.
I have edited that login page blocks.
Wait. Oh. Okay. I think I know what the problem is. I got it. Okay. So, right. So if you have one tag that's called username and one tag that's called password, right? So say Jackie uses your app and she signs in. Her name's Jackie and her password is Pets Awesome. And that's she signed up, and then she doesn't use the app anymore. and then I sign up, right? And I put in pet, and my password is Jackie's cool. The problem is that the way that you're storing your information in the button1.click, the first code that you send me, when you're storing the the sign up information. So I'll click on it. This one, you're saving the person's username and password to the same tag. That means that Jackie's information, her login name of Jackie and her password of Pet's Awesome, is getting erased when I put in my name and my password.
Yeah. So it's being overwritten, basically.
So one suggestion
This
is
is
that
the same tag. I have written the different tag names, right?
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. Ma'am, see, I've used a different tag name for the username and password. So if I'm using the username and password tags in a different screen, so it will be the same username and password or the different one? It should be the same, right?
Yes, it's the same TinyDB across all the screens. The only problem is that the tag username, the information that is with the tag is getting erased and re-put in whenever anybody tries to sign up again. So instead of, I guess my suggestion is for the sign up page, instead of making the tag be just the text username, and then storing the username, what you can do is have the tag be the username and have the value be the password.
Okay, fine. Got it.
Having a separate tag for the password. So that helps because then if Jackie signs up, her username's Jackie, her password's Pet's Awesome. When she tries to log in again, what you can do is you can have TinyDB get the value of Jackie and it will give us her password.
Okay, it
And
means
that way
that
every single person has their own tag and value.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you so much. Fine. And next question. Okay, it's about merging the projects. Okay, that I have gone through the documents. I have gone through the documentation that you have written, and it works. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh,
yeah, no
great!
problem.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you have any more questions about TinyDB, reach out to us because TinyDB is it's a really important and cool thing, but it can be pretty difficult to use.
Yeah.
So no worries.
So that a fusion table can also work for the same. Instead of using the TinyDB, I can use a fusion table also.
Yes, the difference is that each TinyDB is only for that device you're using. Yeah, whereas a fusion table is the same information for everything that's using your app.
Okay, so fusion table will be more, it's better than the TinyDB, I think.
Yeah, for your purposes, yeah, it would be.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And
cool. Okay, and then Lillian asks. Oh,
okay,
sorry.
thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, of course. Okay, and then Lillian asked some quick questions in the chat about if we name or screen anything, will the users be able to see the name? And the answer to that is if you change the screen title. So the screen name is the thing that okay, let me see if
let's give up.
Okay, give up. So okay, I give up. So this is I'm not sure if you can see my mouse moving over it, but this is what the user is seeing on their actual device. That you can change down here in the title. So when you click on screen 1 in the component side, you can change it to say pet is so cool. To change. So that changed right here, but then the actual screen name if you go into the block side and you have to click on screen 1, so that is all still screen 1. That doesn't change to pet is so cool. So the screen name is what you're dealing with on the coder, on the programming side, and then the title is what everyone else is seeing. And if you don't want it to be visible, if you want this bar to not be visible to the users of your app, you can just uncheck this box down here that says title visible and should be gone. Okay, trust me, it'll be gone.
It's gone. Don't worry, it's
yeah.
gone.
And I think, was there one other question? Oh, Oh yeah. We'll answer. We'll write that answer about TinyDB down. And then Lillian also said, "Do we need to add a button to the list picker so the user can pick something?"
I don't think so. The list picker comes with a button. Like I think it is a button.
Yeah.
It's a button that opens to basically a list viewer, if that makes sense. Yeah. So if you can imagine like a list viewer as a list that's always there, and you can imagine a list picker as a list that's in hiding. And it's the same list. It's the same idea.
Yeah, so you can do like list picker after picking, and then take whatever was. I think there's something. Is it list picker dot text?
For what?
For like getting the value that was
selection.
picked.
This list picker. The selection.
Yeah. So you can use this. You can basically like. That's going to be whatever you selected, so you don't have to click a button.
Yeah. Oh, can I show this?
Yeah.
So the thing that I was talking about earlier is that here, if you look at list picker, the block for setting the elements in a list picker, you can set the elements in this before picking, but in a list viewer, there is no block like that, which makes it kind of hard for you to think about. Okay, well, how am I going to give it all the stuff I want to show? And the solution to that is having a screen initialize setting the elements of a list picker. Yeah, like this. Whereas here, you in the list, this is for the list picker. So in a list picker, you can just use this block, right? That's supposed to be a list picker. But for a list viewer, you have to do it in a screen initialize box. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay, hope that makes sense. Yeah, we'll write the TinyDB answer in the Google Docs. And then I guess for now we can move on to Apps Girl Peru, Nicole. Nice. Are you here, Nicole?
Nicole,
I see you.
You're here.
I shall unmute you, Nicole.
Okay, I think this is a question for Amy.
Sorry.
Oh. Yes. Okay. So the question is, should we present our app in English even though the target audience is people that live in Peru and speak Spanish? So everybody who submits to be judged for the Technovation Challenge will need to submit in English because our judges are typically English speakers. But if you're really uncomfortable speaking English in your pitch video, you can speak Spanish, but we'll need to have English subtitles in that video. So I guess my answer is, we would prefer English, but Spanish is fine just as long as you have English subtitles.
No, the thing is like our application itself, like the app itself.
Oh, the app itself.
Like the buttons, should they be in English or in Spanish? Because our target audience is people that live in Peru, speak Spanish, and so most of them don't speak English. And if we present the app on English, like the buttons on English and the text on English, then they wouldn't know how like to use it. And then we will have to change our entire application to Spanish. And so my question is that.
Yeah, I would say then to create your app in Spanish because that's who your users will be. Just as long as when you submit to the challenge, your business plan is in English and, just so our judges can understand the submission. But yeah, do your app in Spanish.
Yes, like we started building our app and we wrote all of our stuff in English because we were like thinking in our pitch video, we needed to present our entire thing in English. And so like we wanted to show our app in English as well so that the judges will understand. But is there any problem that we present it in English even though and then we can change it to Spanish?
Are you going to be taking part in a regional pitch event in Peru? Yes. Then I'm assuming that the people in your audience will be Spanish speakers. So when you do your live pitch, I would check in with the person who is the regional ambassador. And you can find that information on the technovationchallenge.org website, and there's a little events kind of menu to the top right. And it should list who that person is along with their email. But you can also email me personally, and I can put you in touch with that person.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, good luck. It sounds great. I wish we could all just go to Peru and see this.
Gracias.
I'm going to put my email again in the chat. It's basically Amy, AIMEE, at technovationchallenge.org. Thanks, Nicole.
So Lillian, oh, sorry for interrupting. So Lillian's question about the list picker and the list, you're right. You only need one. So our example maybe have been a little confusing. We just wanted to show you how they were different from both the user side and the coding side. But yeah, you only really need one because they serve the same purpose. I think the thing to think about is, do I want the list to be seeable times? If so, then use a list viewer. If you only want it to be seeable when the button's pressed, then use a list picker.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, I'm glad, Lillian. Okay, and then Rosita said, each app has only one TinyDB. So if you loaded a list with usernames and another list with reward codes, the only element that differentiates the elements of the list in the TinyDB is the tag. So one tag can have more than one value, like a list, and you can have several tags. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep, that's correct. Nice.
Oh, I will say though, the thing about having, okay, so the tricky part about having a list as a value in the TinyDB is that the thing, so the issue that we had earlier was that when you try to store something into the same tag, it deletes the old information. And that's still true, even if there's a list. So if you basically want to keep adding to this list, that's the value tag, what you have to remember is that before you add the element to the list, you have to pull out the old list. Add the new element to make this new, bigger list, and then put that whole list back in. Otherwise, you'll lose the old information. So that can be a little tricky.
Anything else?
Oh, yeah, I think that's all the questions from the doc.
For the people who are here, at least, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, does anyone else who's here who didn't?
How do I, wait, sorry, I think we missed, I think there's another question. How do I change the font in App Inventor? That was true. I think there is, that's part of the component side, isn't there? I think there's something, like if you put like a label, and then you can change.
Font typeface, right there. Yeah.
So you can do like.
Not too many choices.
Yeah. Sorry, and do like the cool cursive-y type fonts, but.
Yeah, you can just make images, I guess. That's really hard though, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that'll work. Like you can use images for like buttons and like there are a lot of things you can do with images. So if the aesthetic is really important,
aesthetic's always important.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah. Oh, how do I use other font besides the ones that are in there? Is there any web page that could be used? I don't think so, but we can look it up. Like changing font in App Inventor. Let's see if they have any that. How are style fonts added to MIT App Inventor? And this is pretty current. Cora.
I think the answer is going to be you can't.
Oh yeah, so you do have to use an image. So like here, the response is like you have to take a screenshot and use that image as your label or a button or whatever you want to do.
So that means that anything that you only need one, so titles, buttons, labels for things like picture, things that you know are not going to change. You can just make them into a fancy image, but things that do change, so like things in list viewers, things that that change depending on, for instance, the button you press or stuff like that has to be one of the preset fonts, I believe. That's good to know for development, maybe in the future.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think we might have missed a question.
I think Rosita asked a question about an example.
Oh yeah, example about What it was? Oh, the TinyDB. Oh, with a list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's try.
Okay. Let's add TinyDB. Okay, and then should we have like a label to display?
Yes, we have a label. Label
Okay,
2
great.
and a label 1.
We have so many labels. Okay. Okay.
Wait, let me grab my phone. We can actually test it out.
Can we show it? Oh yeah, we can just like hold it up to the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. TinyDB. We can store values. I guess should we just do it with like the screen is initialized, or should we do it when like, let's do it when a button is clicked. So like, when button 1 is clicked.
And then we need some sort of text box. We actually
what do you mean text box?
Or actually we can just store in a preset value. You're right.
Okay. Let's name our tag test. And then value to store, we want a list. List. Just kidding. Where's the list?
Just there. It's under text.
Oh my gosh, it's right there. Okay, and then we can make a list with
test.
maybe we should name them different things.
All right, so if we do this, what we can do, actually we can have it do it right now. So that means that, sorry, gotta connect. So if you want to try something without having to do anything on your phone or tablet, you can just use do it, and it'll just execute all these blocks without having to touch it, which is good for testing purposes. Okay, I'm gonna do this. And then we should probably also set the label to the back to here. Thank you. Get value of test. Cool. Perfect. So if we do this, this means that on my phone, when I press button 1, it says, wait, can you see this? Oh, it says, oh, this is so weird. Okay. It says test. Okay. So if I want to, so that when I press button 1, it stores more tests, you have to.
Here, wait. We're like fighting over the mouse.
Sorry about that. We can do. Oh. Here, we can do this. Ah, that should work. Yeah, that should work. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, when you press the button, it should say test. 5 tests.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And it says test. Yeah, so that's an example. That's what I mean. And if you didn't do that, so say if we didn't do this, and instead, we just did tests like this, it'll delete the old stuff. So now when I press button 1, it just says test. And if you remember, the first thing that was stored was test. So it just overwrote everything that was in there.
Okay. So next question. What is the difference between Fusion Table and TinyWebDB? Is it easy to set up a TinyWebDB outside App Inventor? And do you have an example? So I think we do have examples in our TinyDB docs, or we can add those and resend them out to everyone if there aren't any. So basically the difference between Fusion Tables, so Fusion Tables and TinyWebDB are like very similar. If you want to use a database that can be shared like across multiple devices, you can use either one of them. I think the main difference is just that Fusion Tables are like stored in the cloud and they're like more flexible. Like you can change things more easily, I think. And
I mean, they're also tables.
yeah,
so you have to work with rows. You need to have many rows and many columns.
Yeah.
Whereas with TinyWebDB, it's just tags and values.
Yeah, so it's like really similar to TinyDB. So if you already feel comfortable with TinyDB, and I think Fusion Tables can be a little bit more complex, but it's also like very, very powerful tool depending on what you want to do for your app. But if you feel like super solid with TinyDB and you're not really feeling like learning something that's pretty much completely new, then maybe TinyWebDB is something that you want to stick with. But for like all like the basic purposes, they're both pretty much, they can both do the same things. Okay. So Lillian says, can you test your app using a Samsung phone? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome, Rosita.
No problem, Rosita.
Okay. Or just by using an Android and emulator. Our test app. Which app did you want us to test?
Using a Samsung phone? Oh, is this just a general question?
I think App Inventor only works on Android devices.
Wait, Samsung is an Android device.
Oh, it is. Sorry, I use Apple. I use iPhone.
Basically, anything except for an Apple phone and Windows phone runs on Android. So you should be able to just download the companion and use it with App Inventor. Yeah.
I feel so sad. I should have an Android phone.
Yeah, Android's better because you can use App Inventor with it.
Okay, that's true. Okay, are there any more questions?
Oh, good. So it seems like the links were not clickable maybe in the PDF I made of the TinyDB 101 and 2. So I just added the TinyDB 101 and 2 as .docx files. So
okay.
Let me know that.
We can also share the Google Drive file with people. I'm not sure if like we put bookmarks, so if you want to like get to headers more easily, TinyDB. TinyDB 101. Which one is it? Okay, I think I want to do two of them. Yeah, so we can also share this with everyone. I'll make a shareable link so that everyone here can see it. Okay. Anyone with the link can view. Yep. Copied. And then, okay. Bye, Lillian. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and for anyone who's watching this webinar after, I will have a link to this Google Doc, so you will be able to access all the questions and answers too.
Great. Okay, so Akira says, can we email you? What are the requirements for our questions? Yeah, you can email us. I think, I'm not sure who people are emailing. So right now what's happening is that Amy has been forwarding all of your questions to us to answer. So I think that's been a pretty good system. So
yeah.
If we ever get to the point where we feel like we can't, as in like it's maybe giving too much information, we'll be straightforward with you. But if we can answer it, we will.
Yeah. Sorry if like you have been asking questions and it's taking us a little bit of time to get to them. Yeah, sometimes if we like don't know the answer right away, we like talk to our advisor and we like do a lot of research. So we just want to make sure we're getting like all the best info to all of you. In terms of limits and requirements for your questions, there aren't really any limits. Just like if possible, it could be as like as clear as you can be. Like maybe include screenshots of your code. That's like super helpful for us. And sometimes we don't know exactly what you're asking, and then we don't feel as comfortable like making assumptions and answering them in a way that might not be exactly what you're looking for. So if you can just, yeah, try to be as clear as possible with like, be very specific, and like screenshots of blocks is always
Screenshots,
helpful.
and even also tell us what you want to do in your app.
Yeah. Just like maybe start with like a general overview of your app and then go into your question. That'd be super helpful.
Yeah,
the context.
yeah, no problem, Nina.
Cool. Well, are there any other questions? Because if not, oh wait, here's one.
Oh, okay. So Rose says, or people have VidQ. Oh, I've never heard of that. VidQ. Yeah, we could check it out. You could create a public group and put video responses in there. It is pretty straightforward. It's good when we see a video of you speaking and describing things. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely look into that. That sounds super cool. VidQ.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, that sounds really helpful. Thanks, Rose.
Yeah. So are there any last questions for Pet and Jackie? And also, Pet and Jackie, do you have any concluding kind of summary or advice for these guys?
Just hope you're learning a lot.
Yeah. Maybe like general tips. It's always nice to use labels to test things out. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're like, I don't know what's going on, I can't tell if this is working, just like stick a label somewhere into your app, even if it's in an ugly place, because you can just delete it later. Just so you can just put in some information there so you can see what's going on. Like, is something working? Is it broken? Or is it just not showing up in the right place? Things like that.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
I think that I might make myself the presenter again and just maybe make a few wrapping up statements. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, back to presenter mode. So I wanted to thank you guys for coming and also really for submitting your questions in advance, because that was a real big help. And I also wanted to remind you that we're going to be able to talk to Pet and Jackie again on the 18th. So if you want to register for that, if you have any follow-up questions, that would be great. I really appreciate the time that you spent with us, Jackie and Pet, because it's really nice to talk to you in person. And, you know, sometimes we answer emails all the time, but we lose our human touch with each other. So it's really nice to So basically, if this webinar helped, come and join the next one if you still have questions, because you still actually do have about 2 more weeks, or no, maybe a week and a half left to go, really, before you have to submit. And there's also going to be a pitch webinar on Tuesday of next week with Nathan Gold, and you can see his picture there. Pitching is so important, and being able to ask and answer questions is really important too. A lot of people really focus on their presentation, and then they think that the Q&A is just something, you know, that they don't have to think about or worry about. But as I was talking to Nathan before, he was saying, you know, the Q&A is really an extension of a presentation, and you have to treat it with a lot of importance too. So I totally recommend that you guys join that, because it's great that you're building these apps and creating technology, but also talking about that is really important, and being really clear about what your app does and what the problem is you're trying to solve, and how does that app solve it, and why are you guys passionate about the problem. So these all fit together like puzzle pieces, and they're all really fun. So I do recommend that you join us for that. And for those of you who are still with us, thank you for being here and asking your great questions. You can access that Google Doc in the materials panel. And for those who are catching up later and just watching the recording, you can also see the questions that they were asked and see those answers. And you can feel free to email me at amy@technovationchallenge.org. And I can forward your questions that I'm not able to answer onto Jackie and Pet, which is great. And I just wanted to say thank you all for coming. It's really nice to see where you're from, what your questions are, what's going on. So I love that you checked in with us and that you spent this much time with us. It really meant a lot to me. So I'd like to also give an opportunity for Jackie and Pet to say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming and like waking up early or staying up late. Like it's right now it's like a really convenient time for us. So we like we really appreciate that you all like went out of your way to come to this webinar and like help us help you, which is super, super great. And I feel like we're all a huge team and like kind of family. And I'm so glad that we got to like hear your voices and everything. It just reminded me like why I'm doing this. So I really appreciate all of you being here.
Yeah, it's nice to know that we're like helping people do what they want to do for the community. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see all that you guys bring with your apps and the kinds of challenges that you're helping other people face. So I'm really excited for you. And hang in there.
Yeah, I was telling someone, sorry. Yeah, I was telling one of my friends today that I was doing this webinar and they're like, wow, that's so cool. You're like helping people and like making a difference. And I was like, I'm like barely doing anything. It's like these girls who with their awesome projects that are really making a difference in the world. So yeah, so I admire you so much for doing the Technovation Challenge and like doing this and putting in all those hours, all the effort into just like bettering everything around you. It's like bettering the world around you. And I just really appreciate that as someone who lives in this world. So
agreed.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree.
Okay then, everyone, I'm going to say goodbye and thanks again for coming, and a huge, huge thank you to Pet and Jackie. And we'll see you hopefully on the 18th. Okay, everyone, goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.